Now calling the Site and Architectural Commission meeting for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Conley is absent tonight. Commissioner Lipsevic.
Here.
Commissioner Srivastava.
Here.
Commissioner Lawler.
Present.
And Commissioner Tam.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to oral communications. Is there anyone in the audience tonight wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone online?
No hands are raised.
All right, thank you. Moving on to written communications. Are there any written communications that we have received?
All the written communication received was posted
and directed to you. Okay.
and an email to the commissioners.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We did receive those. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes. Do commissioners have any questions regarding the minutes? No questions or concerns?
No.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or concerns about the minutes? Seeing none? Nobody online?
No hands are raised.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for the November 5th, 2025 Site and Architectural Commission meeting?
I
Propose. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Great. Do we take a roll call vote or?
Could do a raise hand.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Great. Moving on. Public hearings. Recommendation City Council regarding the following. Adoption of a draft ordinance and ordinance of the City Council of the City of Monte Sereno, amending Title 10, Chapter 10.05 by amending Section 10.05.010 zoning district designations and adding Section 10.05.044 multifamily residential overlay zone, and Chapter 10.06 by amending Section 10.06140 accessory dwelling units, junior accessory dwelling units, standards and requirements, and Chapter 10.08 by amending Section 10.08.040 site development permit required, and by amending Section 10.08.050 permit process, and Chapter 10.11 amendments, annexations, and enforcement by adding Section 10.11.016 multifamily overlay district amendment process. And this is a mouthful. B, adoption of a draft resolution to update the objective design standards regarding required open space requirements for the multifamily residential overlay zone. Ms. Perkins, may we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. We do have our consultants from the M Group online tonight on Zoom. We have Asher Cohn and Hannah Meeks, and Asher is going to present the staff report tonight.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, members of the commission. My name is Asher Cohn. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Diana, and thank you, commissioners, for having me tonight. My name is Asher Cohn. I'm a principal planner with M Group, and I'll be talking about the multifamily residential overlay zone that is being discussed tonight. Our agenda is to go over the staff recommendation before providing some background on the overlay zone that's being considered, and then going into a bit of detail on the ordinance itself. I'll then discuss next steps before being available to answer questions. The recommendation tonight is for the commission to receive and recommend the draft multifamily residential overlay zone ordinance for adoption by City Council. By way of background, this ordinance implements Housing Element Program Q. The Housing Element was adopted in 2024, and the State Department of Housing Community Development, or HCD, emphasized this program as one of the several that they were tracking. The program identifies two parcels, 15785 and 15791 Winchester Boulevard, which I circled in red because they're hard to see on that map, to be rezoned pursuant to SB 10 to allow for multifamily residential development as part of Monte Sereno's commitment to affirmatively furthering fair housing. SB 10 is a law that was passed by the state in 2021. It allows cities to identify parcels that they will upzone to allow up to 10 units. In Monte Sereno's case, because the existing land use, this is an upzoning from single family to what would be considered multifamily housing. The city's posted information on this process on the city website, informed the property owners of these two parcels as well as nearby neighbors, and also sent out letters via the general plan update listserv as well as other city newsletters. As for the ordinance itself, what's being proposed is an overlay. So an overlay works by allowing development that'd be allowed per the underlying zoning, which in this case, single-family housing, along with accessory dwelling units or ADUs, that'd be per the existing R18 designation. That would still be allowed. The overlay will also allow development as described in the overlay itself, which here the density is allowed by SP10, which would be up to 10 units allowed on a parcel. There's another wrinkle here, which I italicized, which SB 684, which also passed in 2021, it allows property owners to subdivide certain parcels, including those at issue here, into up to 10 small lot single family residences if there's multifamily allowed on that parcel. So here, basically property owners, if you own an SP10 parcel, would have three basic avenues for potential development. First, they could develop per the underlying single family zoning, and this could include an SP9 lot split potentially. Second, they could develop via SP10, which would be up to 10 units in multifamily typologies. Or third, a property owner could develop via SB 684, which would be 10 smaller lot than traditionally seen in Monte Sereno single family units. I didn't mention it before would be no develop, status quo. What SP10 does, it allows multiple units and a building size that is similar to some of the homes that currently exist in Monte Sereno. So the way the ordinance is before you tonight, the maximum building heights and setbacks are the same as R18 zoning. It's the same form and the same setback distance as what's currently permitted. The maximum building size would be set at 7,000 square feet. This is set to encourage a variety of housing types. And the average unit size in these buildings is set at an average size of 1,750 square feet. This number is consistent with other state housing laws, including aforementioned SB 684. And it means essentially there could be an average of 4 units in one of these 7,000 square foot buildings. 7,000 divided by 4 is 1,750. The open space requirements that are being proposed are changed from what's currently in R18 zoning and in the city's objective design standards. Notably, instead of a maximum impervious or paved requirement, the overlay instead requires a minimum of 2,000 square feet of impervious or unpaved open space. It also removes a unit by unit open space requirement, instead having promoting shared open space. There's are additional code modifications that are done for consistency, as well as revisions to objective design standards to reflect these changes in the open space requirements. I should note that as part of these modifications include allowing a property owner to apply to have this new overlay applied to their property. So at tonight's meeting and moving forward, we're looking to incorporate the feedback we receive, both from you all as well as from the public. And then after we've had a chance to incorporate that feedback, we're then looking to bring an adoption draft to City Council in early 2026. And in regards to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, the adoption of the SB10 multifamily residential overlay is exempt, as stated in the law itself. So thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I'm available to answer questions, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing screen. I'm happy to pull up anything if you want. Just let me know what works best.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, commissioners. Questions, shall we start with you?
Sure.
Commissioner?
I guess one question to M Group is, when you were doing this proposal, what other properties did we look at or other options did we think about before we went down this path?
In
You want me
terms
to
of the properties, yeah, Diana actually came in before we were engaged, so I'll take that.
Yeah, so as part of the housing element preparation and ultimate adoption by the state, M Group did help us complete that process, but they were brought on board, I think, a little bit after the sites were selected. So I don't know that Asher, he wasn't part of that. He certainly knows the background, but I can provide that information. The city council looked at several different sites in 2023, and there was a public meeting where the different sites were narrowed down to 3 locations, which was this site on Winchester, a site on Carl Avenue, and on Rose Avenue. And at a meeting in, I think it was August of 2023, the city council considered the different locations and surrounding uses and settled on the site, these 2 sites on Winchester.
No, great, thank you. I guess the other question is, do we ever think about trying to work with surrounding areas to annex something to suffice this need? I know we did that with the Hacienda House or the property down that used to be Jack Rose.
Yes, so we did look at potential annexations of county land that's surrounding Monte Sereno. Most of the county land that's surrounding Monte Sereno have existing single-family homes on them and were lots that were deemed less desirable at the time because they were located in high fire hazard severity zones. Those zones have changed earlier this year. So since that time that those were considered, the zones have changed. The other situation that has frequently been happening recently with annexing property from the county into a local jurisdiction is that the county often requires the local jurisdiction to take some of their RENA allocation associated with that property.
Yes, for everybody here and my knowledge, could you explain what RENA means?
Yes, sorry. So each housing element cycle, so every 8 years, the state decides the number of housing units, additional housing units that are needed statewide. The state then assigns an allocation to the different regional planning areas. I think there's 16 of them in the state. Ours is the Association of Bay Area Governments, or ABAG. And then ABAG for us assigns the allocations to each city and county. So our Monte Sereno's allocation for this current housing cycle is 193 new units.
Can I add something to that,
Sure.
Dana, if I may?
Please.
The overlay that we're talking about tonight is not part of Monte Sereno's RENA. Monte Sereno is meeting its RENA through other development, and this is the reason HCD was interested in this program in particular was to meet the city's affirmatively furthering fair housing responsibilities, which is a new set of requirements for the 6th cycle. And they were essentially a lot of jurisdictions that are like Monte Sereno that are predominantly, if not entirely, single family housing. They want to see rezoning to allow other housing types be available. So it's not about meeting the number that Diana mentioned. It's about providing the legal term is a variety of housing types.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Tam?
Just confirming how many number of units were proposed within these 2 parcels?
So thank you. The number, and I'm wondering if it makes sense to pull up the program as it sits in the housing element. That might take too long to find it. We're looking to develop at least 15 units between the 2. So I know I said up to 10, and that's what's required as part of SB 10, but a property owner may come in and say, maybe only 7 or 8 makes sense, and that's allowed within the flexibility of how it's written.
Everything?
So based on what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, we are required to add 193 units to become compliant.
So we are required to allow zoning and plan for the ability to increase the number of housing units in the city by 193
Okay.
through, I think it's 2031 is the end of this 8-year housing element cycle.
Okay.
And the city was able to do that through ADUs and a few SB9 lot splits that were known to be moving forward at the time the housing element was adopted. So as Asher mentioned, this rezoning is not to meet our RENA allocation, rather it is to meet a requirement where we need to provide for a variety of housing types.
Is that it?
And I'm sorry, if I could just add, the city's obligation is to provide the zoning opportunity for that, not to ensure that it's constructed.
And are there is there any other site in Monte Sereno that complies with this new multi-family zone? We already have a couple, right?
So the only non-single family housing in non-single family zoned housing in Monte Sereno is the Montalvo Oak site.
Okay.
With the previous housing element that met the requirement at that time for multifamily housing. The requirements for multifamily housing have since changed, and that is no longer considered multifamily housing. It is considered single family attached housing. So with the multifamily housing, the state is looking for more condo apartment type or small lot single family type of units.
Okay, so last question is that, so this is going to be the first piece of property that will be, kind of tagged as this new zone, right? That we are talking about. And our goal is, our goal is to add variation. So like he's saying, it's not really to meet some numbers here. We are required to add a certain zone that, for compliance. And this is basically adding this new zone.
The new zone and applying it to sites.
Correct, the
Yes.
site. Yeah, okay, I understand. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I have some questions. Just to be clear, reading through this, that these lots will remain R18 lots, correct? And that this overlay means that they could either remain as R18. The property owner can build a new house per R18 specifications, or a property owner could build an SB10 project that is held to the same objective standards as a house would in terms of height and setback. Is that correct?
Yes,
Correct.
and just to clarify the objective standards, one thing that the SB10 legislation for rezoning allows the city to do is to provide specific zoning standards that apply only to the specific lots that are being considered. So you are correct, in the draft ordinance, the setback and the height proposed is the same that's allowed in the R18 zone.
Okay.
Other development standards, the size of the building, the coverage of the lot would be more than under the R18.
Okay. Okay. And then, so again, so it's an apartment building would be the same height as a second story home.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Let's see, so program Q, was this a legislative? Was this a law? Or was this an addendum to SB10? How did this come about?
So the housing element has a series of programs, which are tasks essentially that the city has to complete. And Q is the number of the multifamily task program that we have in our housing element.
Okay, and this is required by the state.
Yes.
Okay. What happens if we do not recommend these overlays, what happens if we don't do this?
So if there could be a chance, that the state could decertify the housing element, which for whatever period of time the housing element may be decertified, would open the city up to potential builder's remedy applications. And presumably, I'm not sure that the state has relaxed any of their requirements over the last year and a half since the housing element was adopted. Other sites would need to be identified and rezoned
Okay, so
before we would be able to achieve compliance again.
okay, and that takes several months, and I'm assuming that's costly and takes a very long time. And it exposes us to builder's remedy. Could you remind me what exactly is builder's remedy and what that impact is?
So the builder's remedy allowance, I guess, is a state law that's been around for many years, but just became sort of a tool that was used by developers in this most recent housing element cycle. But when a city does not have a certified housing element by the deadline, then the city is subject to builder's remedy applications in which a developer could propose a residential development regardless of any zoning standards that are set for the property, as long as there's a minimum of 20% of the units are designated as affordable. So the zoning standards for heights, setbacks, open space, parking would not need to be complied with.
So they can build it as high as they want and as big as they want,
Yes.
and no city, just ministerial approval, right? I mean, there's no approval, there's no need, right? Is there?
If I can confirm, if Asher can confirm, I believe you're correct that it's ministerial approval, but I believe that environmental review would still apply.
Okay, because my understanding, I know Ross Gathers has a lot of builder's remedy projects. Developers love those. Okay, let's see. I think those are my questions for now. Other than this, either one of these properties could remain a home for the for the foreseeable future, forever. Somebody can purchase it and build another home. Or they could build an apartment building. But the size of the second story home. So those are the three, but it's very possible that could just remain a home because that's up to whoever owns the property.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay. I think, sorry, anything I wanted to ask you at this time, I might have to come back with questions, but, okay. Okay, I think now it's time to open it to public comments. I'd like to invite members of the audience to speak. We will limit you to 3 minutes.
Yes.
And I know everyone has something to say. In the interest of not being repetitive, if someone's gone ahead of you and said exactly what you wanted to say, perhaps it doesn't need to, it's already been noted. So to help this move along, if that's all right with you. Go ahead and get started.
We have Samira Fishwick.
Hi, could you please state your name and where you live?
Sure. My name is Samira Fishwick. I live at 17581 Via Sereno. Oh, okay. My family and I have lived there since 2019. We are kind of like, our backyard is almost at a corner with 15791 Winchester. So there are a few reasons we oppose this project. The first being that we were given very late notice about this. Sounds like this has been in the works since 2023. And we were first notified basically 10 days before Thanksgiving. So it's kind of a really busy time. I'm happy we saw the notice and were made aware of it. But it's just neighbors haven't had an adequate time to prepare and investigate the implications of this type of project. The second, and I know some of my neighbors will speak more to this, is owner opposition. One of the owners has stated they do not want an overlay, and I think there is a letter to that effect. The other one has verbally confirmed that they do not want an overlay. The third being inadequate lot size. Both of these lots are like 0.4 acres. So quite small for a potential like 2-story, 20-unit housing apartment. I know that with SB10, I know that a lot of times they're looking at like 1 acre or above, and I think there are a lot of properties that in Monte Sereno that can meet that requirement, one being right here on Rose, and there are several others. The fourth reason, there are heritage redwoods on that tree. I know they were, heritage redwood trees gifted to the city, and they line that property. And I think everyone should be able to enjoy those majestic trees. And it creates a lot of problems in terms of like visibility and what you're going to build there. And there are issues, given the size, like coming in and out of that, having fire trucks turn around. And the last issue, and probably the most important one to me, is the safety issue. We have tons of elementary school kids going to Dave's, my own included, who are biking, scootering, walking to school. These children really need a safe route to school. If you've ever been in this area in the morning, it is super crazy. You have parents doing illegal U-turns, people trying to get to work. They can't really go on Bruce. There are no sidewalks, no bike lanes. So this is kind of a really safe path for them to go along Winchester and then go up Dave's. I know there's already been like a kid who was hit on a bike on the corner of Dave's in Winchester. So it's already a high traffic zone. And I just think adding a big housing element where you might have 20 to 40 cars coming in and out of there in the morning time just makes it extremely unsafe for the children. And for all those reasons, we oppose this proposal for moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have John, but I can't tell that's what we are at.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate you listening to us. Do you happen to have a map of the parcels in the adjoining properties you can pull up just to reference for one of my points?
Oh, please state your name.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. It's John McLaren. I live at 17560 Daves Avenue. So I'm second up from Winchester. My property backs up directly to one of these two parcels.
Okay.
So,
Can I share my screen?
great. So I think most, if not everybody here, is part of a 40 signature letter that you guys have received earlier today that we put into the public record. So when we got notice, which was about 10 days ago, we came together quickly. We didn't hear about this back in 2023. We didn't have opportunity to oppose it. I understand the owners on Rose Avenue for that parcel that was being considered had opportunity back then or along the way to oppose that property being developed. So we feel we're at a deficit in that regard. But regardless, we feel the points here that speak to the fact that other properties would be better suited for this are, as you've heard, the current owners do not want to rezone. They built their homes 20 years ago. This council or this commission and city council fought to maintain the trees that you heard about. It made it extremely difficult. So those trees have been protected. But the point remains, neither of them want an overlay, neither want to sell, neither want to develop. And I believe one of those has been put into public record. We're mindful of builder's remedy. We don't want that either. We want this to work smoothly, but we feel that this development potential here is not well suited. One reason in particular that may get lost in the fray. So if you look at these two properties, I think oftentimes you'll have, let's just call this an acre that will be developed. You have 1 acre adjacent to 2 acres on either side. So you have 2 neighbors. So you have 2 impacts, side yard to side yard, minimal windows typically in side yards, not a huge impact. In this case, these are long, deep lots with a Winchester address. All of our properties, I believe there are 7 to 9, somebody said 11, but every property that backs up to this, their side yard is our backyard. So we don't have a 20-foot setback protection. We have 6 to 10 feet from what they may build there. So now you've got a dense housing development impacting approximately 10 homes right off of that fence line. Again, their side yard setback is what we are going to see. That's our backyard, and that's for Via Sereno and Dave. So if you look at the alignment of the properties, you'll see that. There's other points that other people will speak to as well, but I think I've touched on a few here. The letter, if you've reviewed it or will have an opportunity to, I think details all of this, but I'm not sure the right thing to ask for here, but in principle, I'm opposed to this, so I would ask for a no vote if it's a binary decision on your part. I think another alternative may be to refer this back to staff to reevaluate, given the circumstances here and what you will hopefully hear tonight from all of us, and really relook at where something that we all believe in and support does best belong in our city. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Another speaker, Jennifer, maybe? Please state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Meehan. I live at 17609 Via Sereno. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. I know myself and all of our neighbors really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to voice our concerns. The way I see it, I'm just going to cut to, I think you have two options available to you. You can vote no, or you can vote yes, obviously. I will say that much like many of our neighbors, I lived in that house for 10 years. No notice was ever given to us. I hear that discussions happened in 2023, approved this site in 2024. We were never consulted. We never got any communications from the city. If you vote yes on this, I have to imagine that you're opening yourselves up to liability as far as malfeasance goes, breach of your duty to your citizens as far as notice and public consultation. If you do vote yes, you also should know that we are asking for objective standards be added to the overlay plan. So that if that site, currently, as you've heard, the owners do not want to develop that land. If they were to, maybe kind of sell the land, someone else was to come along, they have to buy both lots. It's my understanding in order to get close to that 1 acre requirement. Those ICLRs that we live in on Via Sereno are entirely glass. So we live in fishbowls. And the development that happened behind my property many, many years ago has a 2-story house behind it. There are no windows on that 2nd story on the 3 houses that have visibility into my backyard because my house was there first. And the city, in its wisdom, understood that ICLRs are a unique architectural building style and they have unique features that need to be respected. There's no way for us to live in our houses with any degree of privacy that would be afforded to maybe a different type of house, given that it is literally wall-to-wall glass. Any windows that are on that 2nd story should not be allowed. In addition, as you heard, you need to have adequate setbacks. So those are our backyards that go along there. And the setbacks should be what you would see from a back-to-back neighbor. I will say, I think that the city has done a good job in respecting the unique features of our ICLRs. I know they're not typical in Monte Sereno or Los Gatos. They are interesting, they are valuable in and of themselves just because of the virtue of the design. So I'd ask the commission to please take that into consideration if you do vote yes for this. But our request is that you say no. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. John Perry.
Well, thank you all for your time and being here and listening to us. I appreciate it. So I think there is a third option that I'd like to ask you to consider and do tonight. And that is send it back to staff, not vote yes and not vote no, but send it back to staff for reconsideration of other parcels. I think that I'm just going to reiterate just very quickly that none of us in this whole room got notice 2 years ago at all. Yet the Rose Avenue parcel, we understand now, had a significant group of people coming up and speaking in opposition to using that property, which in my opinion is clearly the best choice of the choices that you've had before you in the past. The Rose Avenue property is large enough and the streets are all owned by Monte Sereno. For Winchester, that's Los Gatos' street. We're gonna have a hard time with ingress and egress or doing anything with that road. Even if you come out of these parcels, if you could possibly meet even the fire code, get a fire engine to get in there and turn around. the people coming and going will only be able to, leaving will only be able to make a right-hand turn. Because there's a barrier there. The other thing that's really significant about the looking again at the Rose Avenue property is it's a very deep lot, and you can put a road straight through to Viewfield. And the citizens of Viewfield have for years complained about they only have one way in and one way out. If there's a fire, there's an emergency, they would benefit greatly and be happy to have a second way out through the Rose Avenue property. You know, I'll just reiterate everything that John has said already. So I won't go over all of that, but you know, consider the HOA property. I know it's a HOA with 80 owners. There's 13 acres, it's open space. Can't we carve off 1 acre there that has access to Dave's Avenue or another street? And just separate that one piece off. It can't hurt that bad. And imagine what those 80 people could sell that 1 acre for. $4, $5, $6 million. Maybe they might be happy to do that. Another option is reconsider the Baptist church. If you're looking for a big piece of property, it's already on a busy spot. It's got a 3-way stop sign there that you can tell me thank you, that I got put in when I was on the council. And we love it there, and the school loves it, the church loves it. And you know, it's already a major thoroughfare. And a multi-unit family residential would be perfect right across the street from the school, especially if we're looking for affordable housing. Just want to point out that multifamily residential, quick real estate lesson, is one piece of property with a 1 parcel number with multiple units on it that multiple families can live in. So the hacienda property with its planned unit development statuses is single family residential. It's not multifamily residential. And it's not a RENA number thing. It's a housing element thing that they want multifamily residential. And I realize that you have to do that, but it's a tough job. So thank you for that. But consider, you know, some other alternatives. I think somebody this evening is going to say, what if 3 or 4 of us get together and we offer our own properties? That might be a better use. We have no intention of selling them or no intention of letting that happen, but these, in the back of our minds, it would make it more difficult for a builder. He would have to acquire all 4 pieces of property. It's a possibility. So don't accept this tonight, please. You don't need to reject it, but send it back to staff.
Very much.
Thank you.
Billy Martin?
Good evening, Billy Martin. I live at 17563 Via Sereno. I'm not as articulate as the others without my letter that I wrote before, but good evening, commissioners. I live directly behind the parcels at 15785 and 15791 Winchester Boulevard. I'm asking you to vote no on this overlay because these 2 parcels are the wrong location for what is being proposed. I want to be clear about where I come from. I'm a public servant like you. I'm a principal of an elementary school. I taught at Dave's Avenue for over 12 years. I taught 5th grade there for 9 years. So I know exactly what happens when teachers, police officers, firefighters, and other public servants can't afford to live in the communities they serve. I believe in adding housing. I support avoiding the builder's remedy, as others have mentioned. But supporting housing doesn't mean saying yes to a site that is fundamentally unsafe, unworkable, and too constrained to support the density being discussed. The process has already been discussed tonight by many, and the notice was far too limited. Many of us only learned about this proposal through the final hearing notice with the review window overlapping Thanksgiving. That is not meaningful community outreach and engagement, especially for a policy decision that will determine what can be built on these parcels. Second, neighbors near at least the previously considered Rose site were given the opportunity at least 2 years ago to speak against the impact that this decision would have in their neighborhood. Those of us directly bordering Winchester did not. We should have been notified with the same transparency and lead time as others under consideration, and we were not. The property owners themselves oppose this rezoning. They've submitted, at least one has submitted signed statements saying that the lots are too narrow, their homes are relatively new, they plan to stay, and they value the mature trees along the frontage of the property. When the people who own the land tell you that the site is unsuitable, that is not a minor barrier, that is a red flag. The physical reality of these parcels makes the proposal a bad fit. You are looking at roughly 0.8 acres, narrow and deep, surrounded by backyards. The overlay would allow up to 20 units with 6 to 10 foot setbacks. The side yards of these new buildings would literally be the backyards of many of us. Privacy, noise, emergency access, and on-site parking are small issues here, and they should be deal breakers. And finally, this is a school corridor, as was already told to you. Kids walk and bike and scooter through this exact stretch every single day. The driveway already has limited visibility. A large sudden increase in vehicle traffic at this checkpoint is not hypothetical. It is a clear, predictable, but preventable safety concern. I would also like to point out that that's Monte Sereno's one and only park that we could potentially lose, that is enjoyed by all the neighbors. So I respectfully ask you to vote no on this overlay as proposed and send this topic back to staff for further exploration and consideration of more appropriate sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You have me.
Hello, my name is Mei Chi. I live at 17554 Via Sereno. And I'm relatively new to the neighborhood, but I want to bring up a couple of points that I think other people might not have covered. I don't know the whole history. First of all, Cynthia was kind enough to share with us the proposal from several years back. I will note that this particular set of properties is the smallest of the ones that were considered at the time. I find that very interesting that for a high density plan that wound up with the smallest property. I'm sure there are other good reasons. Next point I'd like to make is that I walk my dog in the neighborhood, and I'm very familiar with the construction plans that's in Los Gatos for 2 high density units. One is practically across the street from our cul-de-sac. It's like across the street and south, one house. And that is planned to be a 107 unit, 3-floor assisted living facility. And then the other one, which is on the corner of Winchester and Blossom Hill, is planned to be a 7-floor condominium complex of 63 units. Now, you all know Los Gatos well enough to know that Winchester is a busy street already. We're going to add, Los Gatos is adding these units. If you now add another high density construction area to this mix, it is just going to be chaos. Anyway, last point that I want to make is that people have spoken to about the owners of the property. I know that one of the owners of at 15791 Winchester wrote the letter, and then I went to visit the owner of the other property who had not been in communication with Monte Sereno at 15785. She was very nice lady. She had gotten the communications. It was not a matter that she hadn't gotten the communications. She was not comfortable writing a letter, but she did tell me personally that she objected to the rezoning. And I showed her the letter from the other gentleman, her neighbor, Edwin's son. She read it and she said, I agree with everything he said. I will tell you, you can share that with the committee, but she could not come to this meeting and she was not comfortable writing a letter. But I do believe that I am representing her view, and then her direct backyard or side neighbor, Dinesh, also spoke to her. And he said she told him the same thing. She objected to the plans, but she was not comfortable writing written communication. So I appreciate the time that you're giving us and just hope that you consider all the facts.
Thank you very much. Do we have Amending?
You can go ahead and let him. You guys don't mind?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
State your name, please.
My name is Henry Fee, Fee, and I live in 15670 Michael Lane, probably 300 to 500 feet from the closest border that we're talking about here. And I have very little knowledge about the technical aspects of zoning and rezoning. I'm a thoracic surgeon, retired, and for 40 years I've worked covering the emergency room of Good Stand. And so when I see kids on electric scooters and kids on electric bicycles, adults on electric bicycles with two kids behind them, coming down probably one of the busiest bike lanes in the city of Monte Sereno. And then someone is suggesting that perhaps as many as 40 cars multiple times a day will be entering and exiting those two lots going perpendicular to those bike lanes. The chances for a catastrophic accident are really just hitting me right in the face. And then you add those 40 cars to Winchester and Dave's intersection, which in the summertime especially is very congested with mothers dropping off and picking up their kids at the same time that some of these anxious 25, 30-year-old high-tech people are anxious to get to work when they can't work at home. And I see people illegally making turns right now and compromising the cars and the cyclists and the pedestrians. And I can't believe we can't find a less congested street, less proximity to the pedestrians going to school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Sullivan.
Hi, Patrick Sullivan, my wife Shelley and I are at 17645 East Sereno. So I think I have nothing new to add from what my neighbors have stated. You know, I appreciate the complexity of the situation. I appreciate, some of the presentation that we saw, and there's lots of lingo and code names and acronyms that I can't fully, say that I understand. But what I do understand is that this doesn't make any sense. Like there's no reason that this location makes sense for the boxes that we're trying to check. And those are all the reasons that we've already stated. So my wife and I, Shelley, object to this, and we hope that you guys consider this as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
And we also have Tiffany Flory.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Coletti Kaiser, and I live at 17545 Via Sereno, which is the property just behind the most western parcel that we're speaking of. I had the great privilege of coming home from the hospital to that location. My grandparents bought that piece of property in 1971, and we've called that a family home for 54 years. So I feel very grateful for all of these neighbors here tonight. I want to make just a few points. Like Patrick, I don't have all of the acronyms and all of the language right, so I'll do my best. If a private applicant came to you with a project that failed to meet the state acreage criteria for SB 10 by 20%, had defective public notice, all of my neighbors here, lacked legal access to a public roadway with proper ingress and egress, to Don's point, with the ability to turn a fire truck or an ambulance around on the property, jeopardized child pedestrian safety, as Henry mentioned, and attempted to bypass your review permanently for all future overlays, would this commission vote yes on that? I think I'd strongly urge you to vote no today, send it back to staff for more consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing that everyone in the audience has spoken, or do we have anybody online?
Yes.
We have Danish Bala. Welcome, you have 3 minutes.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Dinesh Balakrishnan. Myself and my kids and wife, we've lived on 17520 Daves Avenue, which is the first property on Daves and Winchester since 2014, and we are directly in front of that property 15785 Winchester. So just like everybody else said, I don't want to repeat, but this was a total surprise to us. We heard about this for the first time in October timeframe. And while this was being planned for the last 2 years, I also strongly object to the rezoning of both of these parcels right behind my property. And all of the reasons that my neighbors have said, I fully support. One thing I do want to strongly also request the committee is to support our proposals to reject this, as well as encourage the city to go back and assess or reassess all of the properties that were looked at in the past, and potential new properties that are actually going to be more suitable for meeting these state housing requirements and actually can be built on. Because these properties right behind us, it's impossible to build what we are proposing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have anyone else? No other hands are raised. Okay.
I didn't know my name there.
Would you like to come up?
Make a comment?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
To state your name and address.
My name is Rafael Camargo. I live in 17576 Monte Sereno. These are all my neighbors. I'm not going to repeat what they said. I think they articulated very well the challenges that this proposal presents. I just wanted to highlight that idlers are architectural jewels, and they're studying architectural school. And I think the city has done a good job over the years, from what I've seen and heard from my neighbors that lived there before, to really protect the intent of these houses and what they represent in terms of how you live in them. And I think you mentioned that. And I do think that also needs to be put into consideration in addition to all the other things. And it's surprising because these are the only idlers in town, and it's surprising that we're trying to do this here. So one more thing that I would like you to consider. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we will now close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Who would like to begin? Would you like to start? We'll start with you. Yes.
So one of the things that there are 2 things that I am kind of debating internally in my mind. One is that we are saying that the restrictions for this construction will be such that it will comply with any other single family home, right? Like we are not changing the setbacks. The second floor windows, I think there's some restrictions so to ensure additional privacy. So there's nothing that is nothing that is negatively going to impact in comparison to any normal single family home construction. So I would like Diana to clarify this a little bit.
So the draft ordinance that's attached to the staff report does include the same building heights and the same setbacks that are currently allowed in the R18 zoning district, which is what the zoning district is in this neighborhood and for these 2 properties. There is not currently in the proposed ordinance a restriction on 2nd-story windows. That could certainly be recommended to be added by the commission. But the proposed height and setback would be the same as the current zoning district.
Okay.
The commission, so one thing that we need to balance is one thing that HCD, I should say, will be looking at is to ensure that if this ordinance is proposed or any other ordinance, is approved, that the restrictions aren't such to make such that the number of units intended is infeasible to construct. However, if the commission would like, you could direct staff to consider perhaps increased setbacks for the 2nd story. Like I said, we started with the current zoning district standards, but there are, if the commission would like, you could consider additional objective standards to be added to the ordinance to reduce any impact to the neighbors or privacy concerns.
I mean, my friend owns a nightclub, so I understand what the structure is. And what I'm thinking is that if, without any change, even the current zoning allows the same setback and the same height that, you know, a multi-family unit might have, right? So there is, that's number one. The second thing that I'm thinking about is that based on what I read, this zone needs to be in proximity of public transport. And my understanding is that there is only one bus stop in the entire city. And that bus stop is right there, right next to this particular, you know, these two properties. So I feel that is kind of, in my mind, something in favor of selecting, you know, this particular parcel. But I just wanted to kind of bring that to the audience if you guys have any comments. That's
Great, thank you. Well, to your point about the bus stop, I just remembered, is there one off of Winchester and Vineland as well?
Yes.
Is that part of Monte Sereno? That's not the one you're talking about.
I think there's
Yours is
two
further
bus
down.
stops. I don't know if the one bus stop down that way, Los Gatos?
It is, and it's up for debate as to whether or not it's staying because of that new development. It may be moving, so that might be null and void altogether in the next 6 months.
Got it.
And just to clarify the opportunity to use the SB 10 rezone, as noted in the staff report, there's two items that could be complied with in order to meet the requirements to use SB 10. One is a transit rich area. And even though this site is within half a mile of the bus stop does not have frequent enough service to meet that definition. So the transit area is not a requirement. But the site and pretty much all properties in Monte Sereno meet the urban infill site definition, which then qualifies the SB 10 legislation to be used.
I think what I heard earlier, and if you don't mind confirming, Diana, so these two parcels that have been identified that are existing are 1/8 parcels. They remain and I've identified as our 1/8, but they are this proposal. It's a zoning opportunity. We're giving these owners the opportunity for it to become a SB 10 situation. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the proposal would maintain the R18 zoning as the base zoning of the sites, would allow the existing homes to potentially add on in accordance with the R18 zoning standards, and the properties could be rebuilt under the R18 zoning standards. The overlay would provide an additional opportunity for a reconstruction on the site of up to 10 units per site. It is not a mandate, it's just a zoning opportunity.
Okay. So when it sounds as what I'm hearing from the public is that the existing owners, they don't have any plans to build multi units. They plan to stay and are opposed to this proposal. I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about was, and it's resonated with everyone, just the communication with the notices. I've only been on this council for about 1.5 years, but what I'm hearing and reading is that council approved these two sites back in August 2023. What other communication prior to this October and November have this neighborhood they received?
Not that we're aware of.
Right, so whatever was posted online as far as meeting minutes from the council were from back in 2023.
Correct, and the property owners of all of the sites considered at that time were notified. There was not notification of any of the neighbors at that time.
Okay, the property owners were notified.
The property owners were all notified.
Yeah, just quick clarification on this. What is What is the policy with respect to such notification? Is there a policy that it has to be a given number of days, and are we in compliance with that policy?
Yes, so the state law for any public meeting is that with some exceptions, but in general, public meeting notifications are posted with 72 hours minimum before the public hearing. We do post online. We have an email list of interested parties that we send it to, and that the agenda is posted in a public place. For this specific rezoning, there was a required notification to residents and owners within 300 feet of the site for the meeting tonight. And that was provided. Staff did also send a letter to the residents within 300 feet of the site in October. But I have heard from several of the residents that they had not received that letter. But there was one mailed, so a lot of people didn't.
Was there something mailed in 2023 in October though? Because none of us received any.
Correct, there was something.
How did Rose Avenue know? How did the neighbors on Rose Avenue know?
I believe somebody saw it on the agenda. Is my understanding.
Sure.
Oh. See, Tom, did it take a minute? Do you have any other comments? Okay. Well, while he's doing that, so what I'm hearing, well, first of all, I love Eichler's, your neighbor. I love your street. I love how during COVID, you guys all went out and banged pots for nurses and things like that. I have great appreciation for those homes. I really do. And I'd like to see those homes preserved. And what I'm hearing is your biggest concerns are privacy, safety for our kids, biking and walking to school on Winchester, in addition to development that we have no control over on the Los Gatos side, density with cars, but the big one is privacy. And so the Commissioner brought it up that I'd like to see how we can address those concerns with our objective standards, with modifications of setbacks, maybe to the best of our ability, where you were saying the side yard setback, their side, this property's side yard setback is your backyard. I mean, maybe there's a way it could be configured so that those homes lining that setback might be considered a backyard setback versus a side yard setback. I like to try to solve problems here. Definitely, I think and we've done this before, I know we've done this before about the second-story windows, either not having them or having them very small, or occluded so that people aren't looking down into your beautiful floor ceiling windows. I also know that the environment's very woodsy. So not only maintaining redwoods, but improving privacy screening to continue that woodsy, private feel. We can stipulate landscaping requirements, I suppose. Also materials, materials that aren't perhaps highly reflective or, that blend in with the trees so that it's very unnoticeable, very, very Eichler-ish or very Frank Lloyd Wright-ish, right? Blending in with the, maybe we can stipulate materials so that they're woodsy and you couldn't really see them through the trees. I also think that there must be a piece about those ridiculous green cones the cones on Winchester. They're great for safety. However, it's impossible for you guys to get in and out of via Sereno. Plus they create issues with respect to parking in terms of fire egress and things like that. So I think that needs to be addressed. There has to be a piece that would exempt that stretch, perhaps, or create safe ingress and egress so that it's possible so that any kind of car that's going, it's not creating a problem. I mean, so whatever that looks like, because I know that that's already an issue. So, and how can we also protect the Eichler neighborhood from future zoning requirements by the state, right? Because it's gonna keep going. I mean, the state for the past 10 years has been passing these laws that are making it very difficult for cities to comply, taking away our control, your voice, because we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. If we don't do this, we're heavily fined, we're denied funding, we wind up with builder's remedy, which is far worse than what is on the table tonight. So I think if those are things that are possible to do with the objective standards to address the privacy and the setback configuration so that your yards, that there's a greater setback for those of you that are right on that side yard. And maybe address the striping and the cones on that particular stretch. Those are things that I would consider very, very important, along with materials and no windows on those sides. Anyway, I'll stop for now because Bob is back. Commissioner, what is your?
I have many thoughts. As I listen to all you guys tonight, and I appreciate you guys' comments. I mean, whether we met the requirement of 72 hours or whatever it is for notice, I think clearly there was something lacking in this from 2030 to now. There should have been a lot more notification. Even I drove by today, and I'll say this, I'm sure it's legally required that we posted a sign in front of each of the two properties. The property sign was probably about this big, and as I'm driving down Winchester, it was easily missed. So I'm not sure what those requirements are, and honestly, it's not germane. It's just disappointing that we have not, been more forthcoming with trying to meet this standard and letting all of our residents know. That said, I mean, I know we're in a rock and a hard place. I mean, the state pushes on us to do one thing, and we as a small residential community are trying to maintain and uphold the beauty of Monte Sereno. So, I mean, personally, I feel we need to probably go back to staff with this and look at other options before we commit to this. That's the first thing.
Commissioners, any other comments? No. Right, then I guess, do we make a motion for a recommendation or? And then I guess I make a motion to recommend to city council regarding that. Do I have to read all of that? Yes. Or do we recommend? Yeah, and then we take a vote.
Yeah, what is your recommendation in the motion and we needing a second to proceed with the vote?
Okay. Okay, well, this is interesting. Yeah.
I guess what is our recommendation?
What is our recommendation? We have to come together on an idea of what we're doing first. So you're of the mind to return it back to staff.
Yeah.
How are you both feeling? I'm feeling like.
That's a point of clarification.
Yes.
Builder's remedy and the time frame in which that could happen. What is that time horizon? I think we all want to avoid that. So
yes.
Knowing when we'd be subject to that is relevant.
Ms. Perkins?
So we don't know. So it would just be if the state were to become aware or become concerned that the rezoning is not happening in a sufficient amount of time, that could be a possible action, but there isn't a specific time frame to it.
They don't tell you what a sufficient amount of time is.
So each of the programs that they're called in the housing element, which are essentially tasks that the city is required to do over the 8-year cycle of the housing element, does have a time frame, and the time frame for this one was a few months ago. So, but again, and I hate to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but because our rezones are not needed in order to meet our housing allocation number. Um, the deadline was a little more flexible than it was for other cities' rezones that were required. So we are a couple months later than we planned. I do believe if we're actively working on it, you know, that's definitely a good sign. But it could be that the state contacts us at any time with a concern. And we just don't know when that might be, or if it might be.
It just seems like that's unfair to all of us, like you're putting us like, you know, you're saying you're between a rock and a hard place, but you're also putting our neighborhood between a rock and a hard place because you kind of let all this time lapse. And now you're like, we need a decision now. And it's like you're trying to fit, you know, a square peg into a round hole.
So I think I just want to confirm that council considered other properties. It's okay. So I was like, what am I doing? Other properties. They determined that these were the correct ones after much deliberation, and I'm sure it was not easy, as this is not easy. They are the ultimate decision makers on this. We are a recommending commission, but they are the ultimately the ones that make the decision. So I'm just laying it out for this evening. Whatever happens tonight, whichever direction this goes, we don't know, but they are the ultimately deciding body. And that's where we need to take this up as well. So this is not the end all be all. This is just a process that is taking time. And thankfully you are all here tonight presenting your views and very heartfelt and completely validated. I mean, we all get it and understand. So in that case, I think that we're in a very difficult position. And I think that council, having deliberated on those other properties, may have a better idea of what's in store. And I personally, as much as, and I want you guys all to be happy and to have the accommodations that you need with respect to privacy and everything. I'm worried if we don't do this, we are going to be in a world of hurt. And then it's not going to be good for our community either. So that said, I'd like to recommend this to council.
If I could just add one point, this is the first step of the process for considering a rezone.
Right.
Staff is intentionally not scheduled the date of the city council meeting at this time. We are looking at the early 2026 timeframe, but we did want to have this meeting to gain the feedback from the community, the feedback from the commission, and then allow staff sufficient time to address what that feedback is before we bring it to council.
Okay.
So the council date is not set yet. We are looking, to incorporate all of the feedback from this meeting into whatever the next step is.
Okay, so could we recommend that council approve this? However, based on public input and ideas that were and staff exploring other options. I think there was one that was rather intriguing about 3 homeowners willing to pool together their properties as for an overlay. Perhaps I'd like to see if we can research that. So is that a fair recommendation?
No, send it back to staff.
Oh, we're sending it.
No, you're gonna.
I'm recommending if and only if those things cannot be, if with the expectation that
But once you recommend it, it goes.
Correct.
There's no and.
I think they're looking for a non-approval at this point.
No, send back to staff.
Send back to staff.
Well, I'd like to make sure that this is an option. What is being this is an option for the city to move forward, with the caveat that we can explore in the meantime, since this is just step 1 and no city council meeting has been passed, that we look into other options and exhaust everything And if it comes out, and if it becomes clear that that is not possible.
I'd prefer, instead of approving or doing that, instead, let's put this back to staff saying, this is still an option on the table. But please consider the previous sites, and more so, let's look into potential annexation of either a commercial or residential property in Los Gatos that's adjacent to Monte Sereno. Because there are a few we talked about. There's also other options that we could go down the path of, and I think that's where we're gonna need to potentially get creative or explore. And
From what I'm hearing that back in August 2023, there was, or prior to that, there was discussion and conversation about the different candidates. And at some point, I wasn't there, but at some point, there was consensus that these two parcels were the identified candidates of this overlay proposal.
Convenient that
Action of the other.
the other residents,
Yes.
no one in this community was present during that hearing.
Right, okay.
So you're suggesting that we
we're-
had an opportunity also to weigh in at that.
We're going to just continue our discussion.
I'd just like to add that sending this back to staff rights a big wrong here, which is the fact that Rose Avenue had an opportunity to appear and argue what we're arguing today, not under a time constraint, which you're unduly putting us under. Sending it back to staff opens everything up for a fair evaluation, fair public input.
So Diana,
That's
let me
what
ask
we've
you a
asked.
question. When was the Rose Avenue meeting? When was that? Was that back in August of 2023?
August of 23 is when council considered 3 different locations.
Right.
The Rose Avenue site, the Carl Avenue site, and these
This
2
site.
lots as one site on Winchester.
And did folks show up for the Carl Avenue site? No. It was just the Rose Avenue.
Were they notified though?
So I'm so sorry, I don't. want
Yeah,
to-
you can't, the public comment is over, so we're having a discussion. So listen, I would like to recommend that council adopt this with the changes to objective standards that address the privacy issues, including windows, materials, setbacks. If those can be approved and managed and brought back to site and architecture to be discussed, to be approved.
And landscape.
I'd like to throw a second proposal out there, specifically that we put it back to council to find other sites that are potential.
So
First
has a motion.
You have, when there's.
I've made it.
When there's a motion and before it needs to have a second, if it doesn't get a second, then we can proceed with that fail, considering that as a failure, and we'll proceed with another. So there's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
I second this because I think what we are seeing is that we are doubting all the due diligence that has been done so far for last, again, I have not been involved with, the previous discussions when those other properties were evaluated, etc. But it's been multiple years of due diligence that has happened already, based on which a particular, site is being deemed as the best option, right? So I think I don't want to doubt that. I don't want to second guess that right now and start all the due diligence again. So with the understanding that yes, the due diligence has been done, and this is the recommendation from people who are experts in this area, I would second this motion with the caveat that, privacy concerns are addressed and any safety related concerns also, we have to figure out creative ways to.
You're waiving
Right.
your
So-
environmental
so-
review.
I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Do we need to take a roll call vote then? Yes. Sorry.
Can you read
The motion to recommend council to approve the zoning overlays with the following. Reconfiguring the setback requirements, so to allow larger setbacks for residents that are abutting the property. making sure that we have privacy windows or no windows on those second floors, or increasing the setback of the second story even further. That was your suggestion. Privacy screening, maintaining trees and materials that would blend in with the environment.
Forgot safety.
And addressing the safety of the ingress and egress for not only the vehicles, but children and pedestrians. All right, roll call vote then.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Lipsevic,
No.
Commissioner Strigostata,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawler,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tam.
No.
Fails. Do you have another motion?
Yeah, I guess my second or my motion would be, let's put this back to the staff, I guess, or city council, whoever it is, to come up with a list of proposed sites and let's broadcast that list widely. It's a small town. There's a lot of ways to broadcast it in my mind, so make sure everybody's aware and then we can go from there.
I'd like to propose that we bring up all of the studies and the conversations and the notes that all of the studies we've done to come to the decision in 2023, review them, but have the appropriate parties of these candidate lots present. I just feel that the folks on Carl and Via Sereno didn't have a voice, and as a community, I think they should be heard.
So would you like to amend his motion with the additional statement?
I'd like to propose that we.
Because he had a motion.
The motion was to, you want to amend the motion.
You can go ahead and
Oh,
amend my
I'm not-
motion or just ignore my and say a different motion. We'll vote on mine first, I guess.
My ask is that we. Okay,
I'm listening.
So my ask is that we consider all of these privacy, modification of setbacks, the materials, but I would like for the studies that have been done, the discussions that have been done prior as to the motion back in 2023 be brought back up to be reviewed and to be shared with the residences that.
May I make a comment on that? Okay, so all of that is available online. So the residents can go back to that August 2023 meeting and watch. And so, right, I mean, when you go home, you could go home tonight and get that. That's there. So that gives you a good start. So, just adding to that, that information is available. And the deliberations are available.
So there's
Yeah.
a motion on the floor.
It's confusing.
Should I clarify the motion?
I'm not
Yes.
clear.
Did you second it already? I mean,
No, nobody seconded it.
No, but
So are we just asking for more time?
I think that would be the better.
Is that what we are saying?
More time to explore the changes that we can make to the yeah, just more time. But we're not ready to recommend, how's this? I make a motion that we are not prepared to recommend anything to city council right now until we can see what can be done with the objective standards and explore other avenues. Is that fair?
What about the motion that's already been presented, then it goes in there?
Well, this will supersede that one.
Yeah.
So, do I have a second?
I second that. And Diana, in the past, we've had like I think a special or exclusive meeting, maybe the week after or so to reconvene.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Quick question,
Mhm.
like, is this indefinitely, like,
No, we need to have a timestamp on it because I believe we're already past the due date.
that's what,
And so we do not want to trigger a builder's remedy. So this does need to be done. And you were hoping to bring this to council in January?
Early 2026, again, that was just the staff's opinion, certainly if the commission thinks otherwise.
So we can revisit this and see what we can come up for the January, potentially, or February meeting, might be giving more time. Okay, February meeting, and then we can refer it to council once we establish that. Is that fair? Okay.
Can I just say one thing before you do that?
Yeah.
It's my understanding also that the state doesn't like properties where the property owners do not want this on their property, and that they may or may not see that as.
I don't think that that's, I think our city manager can address that for
Okay.
you. Or our city attorney can address it for you. Yeah.
Can somebody read the motion?
So we have a motion to not recommend to city council at this time, to refer back to staff, to explore all of the objective standard changes that we'd like to make, and to explore other options that may be on the table. And that we'll bring it back to site and architecture in February.
And clarification by other options, you mean other locations in town?
The other options that have been discussed, options that were brought up here, if there are 3 or 4 homeowners that are willing to submit their properties as possible overlays, maybe that's an option as well. So that was mentioned. The church was a big problem. I mean, we've already gone down those roads before. So we can't keep reinventing we've got momentum and we need to get it handled.
It's also in lieu of other proposals that are out there.
Right.
With the Moscatus, we're starting to see more and more
Well,
multifamily crop up, so.
Well, they've got like 9 builder remedy projects happening right now because they weren't in finance. So it's a real.
We don't want builders.
No, so we're trying to work within the framework where we don't trigger something.
And that's why our notion that perhaps we volunteer of our property to
Yeah,
help.
if you could come to council, if you could come to, that would be
The solution.
an absolutely, if you're willing, that's a very interesting and intriguing solution.
I'd like to meet sooner than later, if that's all right, once we have the conversation going.
It's gonna take time to, it's the holidays. So February will give her all of January to.
I thought council was meeting in January.
No, there is no council meetings.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second.
I second it.
Great, so roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lipsevic,
Yes.
Commissioner Srivastava,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawler,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, all of you for coming tonight. Thank you. Really appreciate your input. It's very valuable.
If you wouldn't mind, before you leave, I had sent an email on Monday. And if you got my email, I have your email address. If you didn't, if you wouldn't mind to leave it so I can include you in our list and make sure to include you on future events.
Right. And then with that. But yeah, I'd like to adjourn the site architecture meeting for November 3rd, 2025.